This is the talk of Music City Real Estate.
Welcome back to another episode of the Talk of Music City Real Estate,
where we educate and motivate all things real estate.
My name is Monty Moore with Realty One Group Music City.
Hey, and I'm Carey Ann with CMG Financial and my mortgage team.
Every week we'll be posting a new episode chock full of Nashville real estate value.
Yes, and you can follow along and subscribe at talkmusiccity.com.
Got a question for us? Ask away at questions@talkmusiccity.com.
Welcome back, Monty.
Welcome back, Jason.
Hey,
we got the whole fam here.
Carey Ann.
Everybody's
good
here.
Good to see you.
So good to see you guys as well.
Hey, I don't know if you saw this, Carey Ann. You probably don't subscribe to Inman News, but it is the number one news source for real estate.
Yes,
okay.
I do actually.
Do you? Awesome. Well, just a few days ago, headline was Commission Compression Prepare Now. Why? And then goes on to say why you should be preparing for commission compression. We need to talk about that. So before we do, though, let's talk about our sponsor.
Yes, our amazing sponsor, Music City Removal. They are the number one junk removal service in Nashville from residential, commercial, and construction. They're experts in ridding you of junk. Their costs include labor and dumping fees without any hidden or added expenses. Whether you need a full clean out or just one item removed, they have you covered.
The Music City Removal team knows the importance of respect and trust while in someone else's home. They understand the inconvenience of junk left behind by previous homeowners and tenants and are determined to provide an affordable and customer-focused junk removal service that puts you first. For a free estimate, just go to musiccityremoval.com. That's musiccityremoval.com.
Yes, Music City Removal, because clutter ain't cute. Nor is cutting my commission cute.
That's what I'm saying. And that's what is happening here, apparently, according to Inman. And I think it's really interesting. Let me read a little bit more here. It says, consumer behavior, demand, and expectations are going to reduce commissions. It's a matter of when, not if. I don't like that sound. The savvy agent is preparing for commission compression or at least acknowledging the possibility. And it goes on to talk about my mortal enemy, the iBuyer, and what kind of influence. And I've been saying this for a while, you know, that iBuyer is causing a downward pressure on what the consumer is willing to pay, because while they're holding this distraction over here, oh, you don't want to pay a realtor, they're sliding under the table in some respects a far greater amount, of cost.
Oh, it's just not
to
called
the consumer.
in the word
they just
commission.
Don't call it commission.
Right.
Oh, don't pay a commission. No commission.
They do it on the back end.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's kind of hilarious is that, they're making it out to be the bad guy charging a commission for your services, but yet they're doing it at a greater extent on the back end. And it's kind of, to me, it's business, but it's slimy to me.
It's bait and switch.
It is.
They're saying don't pay 6% when we'll only charge you 14%.
Right.
Really, that's where the real numbers.
If you want to be transparent, that's where, let's not do the deceitful marketing. Let's actually be transparent and say, hey, here it is. Okay, we're charging a greater percentage because we're just going to buy your house for a discount.
Because we have to sell it. So therefore we can't pay you full price. They talk about how easy it is because they are selling certainty. You pick the closing date. Okay. They're selling move-out date. They'll give you a couple days after closing, which, that's one thing I don't like about what our contracts state here in this state, Jason, and as well as I do, it's a lot of pressure on the seller to be out that day. And I get the buyer side, well, what if they ding the floor? What if they scratch the wall? Or what if they take the curtains? Those kind of things can happen, but what's the greater risk? Is it on the buyer or the seller? In my humble opinion, it's on the seller. I've been in those closing rooms where we're sitting around the table, the truck's in the parking lot, all packed, and we get the news that, I'm sorry, the deal just fell apart. Now, who was at greater exposure there? The buyer. The buyer, certainly was affected by that, but the seller was operating in good faith for that buyer. Okay. Anyway, so what's downward pressure? How does an agent, Jason? You've trained, I don't know how many agents, a lot of them. How would you approach this if somebody came to you, one of your mentees or some of your mentors, which, by the way, thank you again for taking on that role. It's just, I'm just so grateful every time I
think it's an amazing program that you have
really,
here.
Well, really is.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's one thing to offer a mentor to an agent, a new agent. It's another thing that mentor has a mentor. You know,
right.
I've never seen something like that, and I'm so grateful that you've authored that here at Realty One Group Music City. But if one of your agents came to you and said, "Well, I don't understand. How do you prepare for a commission compression?"
Right. Well, it starts on the front end, and it's talking to your clients, because right now, I mean, you're going to see 1%. You even have some out there that offer $1.
I know it.
$1.
I know it. That's
okay.
painful.
And so let's look at it. Okay, that's your reality. What some of the opportunities? Well, the opportunity is to say, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you know, this is the situation out there. You've got some people that are going to offer a commission for my side, and my commission that I charge to represent a buyer is whatever percentage. You know, in this case, let's use 3%. It's 3%. Now, there are some that do not include my commission on this side, so that what they're basically saying is that you're going to have to pay that. So we got to keep that in mind when we go to make an offer. And so they are looking at keeping that that house at a lower price because they're not paying the commission price, and that's why you're going to see a difference. So it's just setting that expectation up front and saying, these are some scenarios, and I'm going to help share that with you when we're looking at these houses.
Yeah. I was looking up a quote because I remember, don't lower your price, raise your value, give more, give more. So the folks that are doing the flat fee, there's some other companies out there that have, rebranded their names, and actually folks that we know that have rebranded, with that's just what they're going to be doing across the board.
Sure.
It'd be different when back in the day, and I don't know if you still do that now, where you offer that do you still offer that?
We do if we need to. I've got one up in my pocket, but it's not something that we become that company. No.
Right, exactly.
We're not that company.
But so that's what it was great about. You offered both, and you used it as as another value add.
Yeah, a tool, a hook,
for more assistance there. But some folks, saw the idea and ran with it, which that would start to compress, right? Just the commissions, because there's no longer so much in that, right?
Well, it's a compounding effect for sure. And I really like what you said, Jason, as far as preparing the consumer, the buyer, because it's one thing to take, it'll be okay about 2% or whatever it is that you're comfortable with. When you get there and there's $1 and you haven't had that talk with your
tough.
client, you better. You have a hard time now deciding, okay, do I show that property? Because if I don't, they might buy it anyhow without me. Now I've really screwed up because I've not only lost the opportunity to make a living on that particular transaction, but now I've lost that client plus future business potentially if I don't handle it with a prepared presentation and the right heart, the right motive. Are you gonna? What if that's their dream home, and what if they don't have the money?
Yeah.
And what if they're head and shoulders and knees into the deal, and what are you going to?
And see, that's where I focus a lot, probably majority with new agents is transforming them into thinking like a business.
Sure.
And that's where it comes in. Do the right thing. You're a business. Get your emotion out of it. If you make $1 on the transaction, all right, how are you going to not make $1 on the next transaction? What are you going to do different as a business? Okay, well, I just, I had to learn the hard way to have that conversation up front. So, do I show the house? Yes, absolutely, you show the house. If you're only making $1, whose fault was that? You didn't have that conversation. You didn't set that expectation. All right, so it's just a business. You have to have that mindset so that you're building a long-term asset here. All right. This isn't just a one and done show. So it's really focusing in on that. I've got to be prepared. I've got to be the one that's educating my clients, and that's just part of it.
So as you are running your business as a business, do you approach your listing with that list of value adds? As in, do you have those broken do you coach folks to break it down?
Yes.
This is the value pack and you get A through Z type of thing.
Yeah. And that was even, I teach a 12 module course called Rev Up. And that was one of our modules was them going through thinking about what makes them different. What is their unique selling proposition? And from there, you can determine your value add.
Sure.
And so that was one of our assignments for them to do.
Listing a house, and I've listed some, and some have just put it on the MLS. Others, you can see that long list of items that they've provided. You can just see the differences, across the board.
Are you talking about the house? I was talking about the agent.
Well, I'm talking about what the agent's going to do to help sell my house for that fee,
We're
right?
talking about the same thing then.
Okay, for that particular fee. And again, I guess also, when it depends upon the price point of your house, right? So, there's a difference when you sell a house that's 100,000, 200, 400, a million, 3 million, right?
Yeah.
If we're talking about a certain, percentage, similar to folks that talk about closing costs, closing costs are based sometimes on a percentage, right? And or for us, there was a big talk with the MBA, MBA, Mortgage Bankers Association, about cutting our commission as well. And we're already 1 to your 3, and because of the compression of the cost and stuff.
There's no consistent 3. No. Okay, there is no consistent number, but yeah, I get you what you mean.
Sure, right, exactly. But the average, meaning
Sure.
a lender too can make between 1 and 2.
Okay.
The average would be 1.
Right.
The average possibly could be 3 type of thing. So, and you just, because they're saying that the rates you have to compress, and there's not so much income in there to be able to pay all the overhead, et cetera, what's going on. So it's been a topic on our side as well.
Right. And two, one of the beautiful things about working like with the Realty One group is that you don't have such all of the the caps that you have to pay. So that's a lot of money that you can actually say, okay, well, I'm not having to pay $18,000, $20,000, $25,000 a year, and I can take a hit here. If you want to say a hit, I actually don't view it as that point. I look at it as they need the help. My objective is to find a win-win-win, a win for the seller, win for the buyer, and a win for me. And so if we're working together, and that means that I'm giving up a few $1,000s, then that's the right thing to do.
Well, I think it goes back to something we talked about in maybe some previous sessions about your core beliefs. What is a core belief? If you have a true non-negotiable core belief, which one of ours is always doing the right thing for the consumer and the referral partner, and you're going to do that. And sometimes that costs you money to do,
And it does, but you can look at it like, is that a cost or is that an investment? Because those people are going to value you and they're going to refer you. So what's the long-term value of that client that you just helped out? I
always wonder, and this is maybe a great question for you guys, deals that fall apart over $1,000, or $1,500.
That's a pet peeve of mine, personally.
Yeah.
I've seen agents willing to allow a deal to die for such a small amount.
Yeah.
They're forgetting that, okay, now I have to start all over again. And the whole process, my client's got to start all over again. They've got to go through that emotional challenge. Wouldn't it be, just recently had a situation where my client got emotional about a repair. And I said, you know what, let me go ahead and take care of that. And I shouldn't have had to do that. But he was ready to die on that hill. And it's like, are you kidding me? I don't want to have to go through all this process to get to that point in time. It was worth throwing $1,000 at it. And this very topic here, guys, I think Jason, but this is part of what we saw happening a few years ago when we made the decision to go from a conventional real estate office that was charging their agents 20 to 30%, in our case 30%, with the hopes of a 10% residual. The reason why we left that environment and to come to an environment where we can provide our experienced agents with 100%, because if you are going to have to negotiate for less for a service, it doesn't mean the service has got any less expensive or involved in providing. And I agree with you, first of all, that we need to be okay about hitting a home run most of the time. You love baseball. hopefully we're hitting a home run all the time, but every once in a while, a single is a beautiful thing,
Right.
okay? Because you got the relationship going there, for future business. And if you didn't have that single, if you didn't get on first base with that client and at least have that, remember where our goal is to constantly be building our database, and you're just held out for that home run, you're going to lose a lot of opportunities there. But it was for this very reason that Connie and I purchased the Realty One Group Music City franchise and brought that to Tennessee, the first one open here in the state, because of what I'm seeing is the downward pressure of the real estate commission because of these larger entities that are forcing it down. And just to be honest about it is I think the cat came out of the bag a few years ago on the listing side of the transaction that we can't. I mean, the consumer knows that a lot of that stuff's automatic,
Right.
And yeah, I get it on the buyer side, but is it really worth paying $10,000 to fill out that listing agreement? I mean, I can argue it all day long. I'm worth it.
Sure.
I mean, I can do that, but unfortunately, the consumer doesn't care what I think I'm worth, and so to have the flexibility for our agents to be able to capture 100% of whatever that amount is, I feel like we have empowered them. Okay, we've empowered them
That's
to
right.
put more transactions together than if they were like some companies. They drive an hour to go to a listing appointment, and that client says, "Well, I'm not paying your fee," and they're unable to negotiate that fee, and so they drive another hour back home.
Well, it's going to give you the power to provide more value, right? Because you're going to make more. You can reinvest it into selling that particular
Right.
house, right? I think that's a huge win for sure.
Well,
That's something that's great.
So, and like these things, and I like how that article, it states it's not if, it's when. I mean, and that's so true. It's that stop fighting these iBuyers. Stop fighting and complaining about it. And I think I even shared that on one of our other shows. It's like, all right, you've had your pity party. Let's just keep on going. And it's, what are we going to do from this point? Because they're not going away. They're not going away because businesses are made when problems are solved.
Right.
And they are, obviously they have found a problem and they are taking care of it.
They have.
And the consumers are paying a premium for it. So in doing so, it's like, okay, how are we going to prepare for this? How are we going to handle it? Our way of doing business is changing. It is.
Yeah.
And you either adapt or get
you,
gone.
you evolve or you turn into a travel agency. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I was looking for.
And so,
I couldn't even think they were. This has been so long since we've had any around,
But and so that's where you got to look back at your business and find out what's your value propositions. What can you do? What are you going to do differently? Are you going to be having these conversations? Are you going to get the training that you need to be the professional agent, not to be the hobby agent?
Right.
It goes back to that. Are you committed or are you just interested in it?
Right.
So at the end of the day, it's like, okay, this is happening. What are you going to do? And who are you going to partner with in your business? Because that's very important.
I think people are comfortable paying for anything. I mean, we spend money on things that we feel are valuable. If you came to me and you showed me your value, I would have no concern at all, because there is that notion too that if it is free, sometimes there's something in it.
Right.
Maybe you're not going to give me the exact service level or this or that. So, but leading with your value, should easily keep that commission or income level at a number that should make the most sense for sure.
I shared years ago with an assistant I had because I felt like she had dropped the ball. I'm not blaming her, but because buck stops here. But I said, look, I really truly believe the consumer has no problem with paying for a Ritz-Carlton experience.
Right. Yeah.
If with big letters, if they're getting a Ritz-Carlton experience. It's when they feel like they've been staying at the Days Inn. No offense to anybody that has a Days Inn, or you know what I'm saying. If they're just staying at a cheeseburger motel and they're being charged as though they were staying at the Ritz-Carlton, that's where the angst comes from.
It's the expectations.
Yeah.
I'm paying for something.
What did I get for this?
Expectation.
That's our responsibility.
It is.
It's not. And thank you, Jason, for redirecting where the responsibility really lies, it truly lies, and our only defense is that we have to insist that the consumer have nothing less than a great experience every possible time that we can. And we're not going to hit it every time, but every time possible. I shared a few weeks ago, that don't be that agent, because I had such a cluster on a client of mine, that I finally had to let him go. And I said, I'm sorry, but I can't allow any client to steal my joy, steal my peace. It was starting to make me feel sick, and I had to fire him. I hated that. Yeah. But at the end of the day, most of the time, I insist that my clients have an outstanding experience as much as humanly possible.
If you haven't stayed at a Ritz, I think that's a great reason to go stay at a Ritz and actually learn what that is. There's a whole science behind that
amazing.
Experience, and if you can bring that to real estate or bring that to mortgage, I'm writing this down, because I'm all of a sudden I got some ideas happening.
Oh, there's books and everything on it too.
Oh, and it's just amazing. But you're right. At that point, absolutely. What do I have to pay? For you to sell my house?
Now you're charging not 3 but 4 or 5 or more, for one side of the transaction, because you're developed. That's your brand. Your brand is a wow experience,
Right. And going back to the baseball analogy, I love hitting home runs as well, but I also do know that it's actually base hits that wins games.
Yeah.
And so,
stolen bases.
And stolen bases. Yeah. Well, we can't steal anything here. So.
No, we're not supposed to steal.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jim, though.
But go back to, base runs.
Go back to your brand. And that's why, and I shared this in the Rev Up, that's why, our, I guess, motto or tagline and everything is simply expect excellence. Mm-hmm. That's what we value, and that's what I want them to come to expect from us.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody should adapt that, Jason. I'm going to give you credit for it, of course, but expect excellence. I think it calls you to the picture for certain, because that's a constant reminder.
Yeah.
That whether it doesn't say if he feels okay, expect excellence. No, it says expect excellence. But I also believe it puts some responsibility on the consumer to recognize excellence as well. Okay. Mm-hmm. And when you're recognizing excellence, there's a difference. Mm-hmm. And now suddenly you don't tolerate what's less than that. And if the consumer wasn't tolerating what was less than that, and they didn't have the option of the iBuyer, then our job security would be solid as a rock.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But that's what you said earlier is these iBuyers have stepped in where there was a need, and the need was there was a lack of conviction in the consumer's heart and mind that we are a much needed advocate and not just another expense that they could push out of the way. Mm-hmm. Years ago, I was over 30 years ago, I was standing outside of a training, and I said, guys, if we do not insist that the consumer, if we allow, I think I said it this way, if we allow the consumer to continue to feel like they overpaid for a bad experience, they're gonna do away with us.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that was before the internet. That's before all the other stuff has happened, and certainly before iBuyers. And all that's happening now. So listen, if you're listening to this podcast, guys, you're a real estate professional. That is your only defense, is to make sure that you are of value to the client. How does that happen? You study, you do everything right. You do it with the right heart. Mm-hmm. You do it with the right intention. You do it with the right commitment to do the next right thing. This is not about you. It's not about what needs you might have. The universe responds to value. It doesn't respond to wishing and hoping and, gee, I like Property Brothers. It responds to bringing great value to the marketplace, and then you'll have more than what you ever thought you would. That's my 2 cents.
That is so good. Absolutely.
Do you have a lot of business being siphoned off by Are you noticing an impact?
Well, I'm not personally, and that's not who I'm. The banter is for. It's for the newer agent
that
doesn't know how to compete with it.
Is it a common objection that's coming up? Is it coming up?
Well, more and more are saying, well, I need you to match that one, or I'm going to go with that one, and that one being 1% listing or something like that. Okay,
pretty much every listing appointment, it seems like here lately, they've at least reached out to them and had them give them kind of a quote. Mm-hmm. Of sorts.
But not Redfin and Zillow. I mean, those guys they've worked on their debt. They've sat back for the last 10 years, not sat back, but in Redfin's case, they ate it for 10 years, been unprofitable for over 10 years, and gathering that database. Zillow, on the other hand, was a little, I don't know if they're smarter or not, but they helped all of us realtors, except for a few of us, fund our demise by selling us back leads that they're caught by our listings that we just freely gave up. Because out of greed, I think sometimes, or something. I don't know. We're just foolish about it initially, I think. But anyhow,
that's the other thing I was going to ask. How sustainable is that business model?
Which one?
Just the whole iBuyer. I mean, it's hot right now.
I think it's very sustainable.
Yeah,
I really do. As long as they can convince the consumer.
Long as there's a need.
But there's a lot of consumers out there. There's going to be a section of people that are all going to be wanting that. There's a price similar to us. If they're shopping just rate and they don't care anything about any value add, they don't even care if it's going to close on time. They're just looking for one thing. Yeah. That's not going to be my buyer anyways, or my client, right? So we're going to have a large grouping of all of those. But I think what you're sharing out there too is we're going to have competition, whether it's the iBuyer or the other person down the street. Take a moment, slow down to speed up, create your value adds, your unique value proposition, and really share with that person. Lead with that, right? Definitely lead with that, and it's gonna require harder work. Right now with the rates being compressed, if I want to make the same amount, I have to do double the amount, right? That's just how it is, which means I have to work harder to get the same. So we're all dealing with that in some aspect, but just know hard work does pay off, and you can help a lot of families. So.
But also, as a real estate professional, put yourself in an environment, whether it be this company or a similar one, where you're capturing a higher percentage of your bottom line negotiated dollars, whatever that is. If it was $1, if it was, 14%, whatever it is in between there, that you're capturing a higher percentage, because it only makes sense because of what this headline states. I mean, if you're going to get less on each gross side of things, make sure you're getting more on each net side of it, the transaction. Do you agree with that, Jason?
100%.
Awesome.
Play on words. Boom, boom. Hey, thank you so much for joining us this week. We can't wait to have you come back next week. You've been listening to The Talk of Music City Real Estate.